Hey everyone, welcome to the Open Book Livestream, Episode 4. Tonight, Christine and I will be tackling the subject of what is at the center of your marriage. And here's a little hint. It should not be sex. We're not licensed therapists, but we are certified life coaches through the American Association of Christian Counselors. I'm Bryan Hoss. This is my wife, Christine, and we're just hossing around. So let's dive right into this. This whole discussion tonight is going to be based on the first commandment. You shall have no other gods before me. And how that applies to our marriage. And what do I mean by that? What is at the center of your marriage? Is it God? Or if it's not God, then you have no center at all, right? Zero center if it's not God. And Chris, if you would be so kind to bring up the little diagram that we have through all of our therapy and intensives and stuff that we've gone to, this is a great model of what we're talking about. Husband, wife, and at the top of this triangle is God, right? So if I'm building my marriage based on Psalm 127, he has to be at the center of my marriage. And at the end of the day, if God is at the center and we're both taking that journey along, we're actually getting closer together because God is at the center and we're both traveling towards that same goal, which is to get to know God, to know who we are in him, and to know who we are in each other in our marriage, which is just, it is exciting stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you have the flip side of that, which is the world's view of marriage.
Right.
And this is going to get ugly. So, and what I mean by ugly is that because now God is not at the center, and this is what I just said, is that with God not at the center, we have chaos. Mm-hmm. Because now it's about me. Look at me, look at my house, look at my car, look at my wife, look at my kids, look at my bank account. God is nowhere to be found in that picture.
Right.
And then from there, just think of all the things that come into play. Then I, if it's about me, I start becoming deceitful towards my spouse because she's not going along with the program. It's not it's about me. It's not about her. It's about my marriage and not God's view for my marriage. And that doesn't just. That's not just Christians. Not non-Christians. That's both Christians and non-Christians have that. Christians we're pretty bad at that. Our marriage was a mere shamble of that in the first 8 years. Is that God was not at the center of our marriage?
No,
definitely not. Definitely not. Right. And then from there, you run into laziness, carelessness.
Well, and let's go back to that actually a little bit to where you're talking about deceit, is that it's not just the lies that we tell our partners. It's not just the lies that we tell other people. It's the lies that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And, it's I'm going to sacrifice my desires, my needs, my wants for this other person. But that's the lie. The truth is that you're really still focusing on your needs and your desires, and now you're just using that as an excuse to resent your partner
or manipulate
and the other person, or manipulate. But it's a manipulation of yourself. It's a manipulation of yourself to destroy your marriage.
Well, and it also is that if I'm being honest about it, I don't need God, right? If I have all these things, I got the house, I got the car, I got the bank account. I've got the trophy wife or the trophy husband nowadays. I've got kids. I've got a great job. I got all this stuff. I don't need God. Or I do, like I said, you could be showing up on Sunday and it's all good. I've put on this great facade that I have God at the center of my marriage when he's really not, because I work late. I'm doing all these things and I don't spend a whole lot of time because my focus could also be look at me, what I'm doing, and it's never about giving God his glory, right?
Right. And so the other thing, and I kind of interrupted you, so let's go back to where you were, is talking about carelessness and being lazy. And I think we've talked, I don't know how much we've talked really in this, sorry, in this, in the live stream that we're doing about the failures in our marriage. But I know we've talked quite a bit about your infidelity and your addiction and going through that. But there was also what I was doing, is that the marriage is falling apart and I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And, or, just not even making an effort. And a lot of that was what I did, but I think other women do that too. Other people do that too.
Stop pursuing.
Yes. Stop
Pursuing.
pursuing. It's a really good word. And I keep getting distracted because I'm thinking, okay, I need to get another chair because I need to stop spinning. So it's just making my brain go, stop.
I'm stiff as a board and you're over there just like I'm in fourth grade and I'm chilling today.
I'm in the teacher's chair.
Right?
So I get to spin around because
Right.
only the teacher had a
right.
spinny thing.
And then also with that laziness and the carelessness of that, I put you in charge of my emotions, right?
Yes.
I get to blame you for the failure of my marriage.
100%. And that's a fantastic observation, is that if I get lazy and I'm careless and I'm not doing, what I need to do, taking care of myself, dealing with my relationship with God, then I put you in charge and then I don't have to worry about it. And when everything goes south, I get to blame you. It's
Yeah.
not my fault.
No, it's not. And then that just, and it just, with the world's view of that, of just, if things get like, they have this perception, there's this perception that marriage should be easy,
Mm-hmm.
right? That it should be, we got married, it's all good. And then when it gets tough, it's peace out.
Right.
And I'm speaking of myself. I was, that was where we were 4 years ago. And then you can also have the other side of that, is that people stay in the marriage together, even though that they know that the spouse is having an affair, because they don't want to leave of that, because I don't want to leave what's being provided for me.
And beyond that, if your vows don't mean anything, if you're there for convenience,
Yeah.
you can actually justify yourself, your own cheating, your own infidelity, your own idols. And they don't necessarily, that emotional affair doesn't necessarily have to be with a person.
No. Oh, no.
That's...
Could be Baskin Robbins. Sorry.
That just opens way too many doors for us with our current obsession with ice cream right now.
Yeah, right.
So,
total ADD moment.
This is our symbol for it was a bunny trail, and so now
that train.
I just ran down that bunny trail in my mind, and what I was thinking just totally went away.
What I said, there's never a dull moment being around a Hoss. That is
No.
for sure.
That is 100% true.
Yeah.
So
ahead.
going back, let's get back on track. Infidelity can be anything that you make your idol.
Yeah.
And any time that God is not at the center, whatever is at the center of your life becomes your idol. And then, if we go back to, our image here, if God is not at the center, you're going whatever direction you want. You take away going
you're
towards
laboring
God.
in vain too, right?
You're going off, and yes, to quote the psalm there, they labor in vain.
Yeah.
We can build all we want, but it's not going anywhere.
Right. And I feel like, just to not to definitely talk about the blessings that we've had, is if you think about the first 8 years of our marriage, where that marriage was, and then we blew it all up. Now that our marriage has been based on God, how much He has blessed us in the last 4 years. Like we don't deserve it. I mean, 100% don't deserve the blessings that we've got financially, our connection of our marriage, just all that whole realm that He has opened up for us, and the calling that He's given us, and it's beautiful. But then you come to the flip side of that, of my favorite, not flip
How
side.
many flip sides do we have?
A lot of flip side, because I don't know, that word's just stuck in my head right now. But you have in marriages where when they're breaking up, and the go-to line is, I've fallen out of love with you.
Well, that's because it's, you're thinking, what do I get out of marriage?
Yeah.
It's again, going back, it's that. So everything is a flip side for you and everything is going back for me. Is
right.
That when your vows don't mean anything and you go into the marriage in that worldly perspective, and it's not just, Christians do this too. I think it's a human fallacy. I think it's being human. I think it's how we sort of naturally go, is that it becomes a selfish thing. What do I get out of the marriage?
Right.
What is in it for me?
Right.
What is there? What's coming to me? It's looking at the world in that perspective instead of giving.
And it's not even based on what you did that day. I mean, whatever you did that day, it's not good enough the next day.
Yeah. And then that leads to that very natural progression is your favorite line. I've
fallen out of love with you, and I'm going to hossify this real quick, because love is a choice. I choose to love you. I choose to look at all the good and try to find at all costs to be at a deeper connection with my spouse. And the moment that I say, I've fallen in love with you, you might as well say, I'm choosing not to love you anymore. I'm going to justify my lovelessness for you, and now you're the brunt of all my problems. And it was because of you that I have all these issues, not myself, not and for me, speaking clearly of myself, not my addictions. This is all yours. I'm piling this all on your plate. And
isn't it scary how logical that progression is?
Oh yeah.
From looking at putting yourself at the center, your pride, and then lying to yourself, lying to everyone else, being lazy, putting all of the responsibility for your own happiness on somebody else.
Stop pursuing.
You stop pursuing. You don't take your vows seriously anymore. And then, you start, you continue down that progression. And it's now it's all about me. What am I getting out of all of this?
Right.
I'm not getting anything. And it's exactly what you said, but it's fascinating to me how that progression is it's so logical.
And it's because the world has hijacked what love means. Right? I mean, because I bought into that for, we're going to say 40 plus, 37 years, because I'm 52. So being a young man, I have bought into the world's view that sex is love, or did, not anymore. That sex is love. Sex equates to, if you love me, you'll have sex with me. That's what all young boys. That's what I said to every relationship that I was in.
It's in our language. What do you do when you want to have sex? Let's make love.
Yeah.
Because sex is love.
But they're missing out on so much, and I don't even, because that's like a subject for another day.
Yes, sorry.
Is that how much you're missing out on everything else? But here's a wonderful thing. Let me break this down. What the biblical definition of love is from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 and 7. Love is patient, love is kind, and is not jealous. Love does not brag and is not arrogant, does not act unbecomingly. It does not seek its own. It is not provoked, does not take into account a wrong suffered, does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes in all things, endure all things. Love never fails. And right now, my heart is thinking back, not my heart, just taking me back to the day after I sent you the text about reconciling in our marriage. And we hadn't talked in months. It'd probably been six or 7 months since we had actually really talked, or whatever that time. It was a
few weeks.
It was a while.
Maybe 6 weeks, but not 6 months. Maybe it felt like 6 months. It
could have felt, the heart doesn't know heart. But anyway, getting to that is that I had sent you the text, and then we talked about reconciling. And during that conversation, I was so lost. I said, you remember, and I said, what is love? Because I don't know what love is. I have no clue. I'm so lost. I thought I knew what love was, and quickly realized I had no clue about what actual love is. And a lot of that goes, and I'm going to run this train for you real quick, comes from a dysfunctional childhood of not wanting to be wanted by my parents, not, just in the way I treated women. All of that, it was based on my perverted definition of what love was, because sex was love. And then if you didn't want me, you're fine. I'm peace out. It's too hard, so I'm out of here. But that just taking that love never fails, and then I know I didn't say it, but was definitely thinking of how did we get where we are right now? Thinking 4 years ago on the brink of divorce, if love never fails, how did we get here? Well, because we were basing that off of my definition of what love was, not God's.
Were we basing that, or were you basing?
No, I want to clarify that. What I would, and if I said we, I mean I was our relationship. Yeah, and I you definitely, that's 100% on this end of the stick.
No, and we're laughing because it's kind of a running joke. We need to take the trash out. And by we, I mean you. And, we need to,
do the dishes, or we need to make breakfast.
And by we, I mean you, or by we, I mean I. And so
we need to go grocery shopping.
By we, I mean I. So, it's
awesome.
It's kind of a,
wait,
who are we talking about running joke here?
Right. Well, and, it's just, marriage just, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say and that's the contrast in the world's view of marriage and the Christian view of marriage, or God's view of marriage, is that those vows are given in love. And by given in love, I mean to say I didn't make my wedding vows to you.
Yeah.
I made my wedding vows about you to God.
Well, I'm gonna walk it back just a second. This just really resonated with me, and I know that people may think, wait, like we just come on here and we're just like floundering around. We actually do.
Because it just looks like that.
Yeah, but we're young and we're not physically young, but we're young at this and going this. But something really just tugged at my heart in this, in what's spoken in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 and 7. If you would bring that back up. Think about that. Does not take in account a wrong suffered. How many arguments have been in our marriage due to one of us having to get that pound of flesh?
Well, it's your favorite saying from Rick Reynolds from A Fair Recovery.
Yes.
Is that, whatever percentage it is of marriages, of arguments can't be won. They're unwinnable arguments.
Oh, he says it's like 3/4 of all.
Right, which phrase I've always hated because I.
But it's true though.
Well, yes, but you have to explain it, and any phrase that you have to explain irritates me. So, the reason why you can't win the argument is because you're both coming from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And you're coming and you're trying to. In my head, this made a lot more sense than it's seeming to make right now. Is you're trying to, that's where the connection was. It's where is the line?
It's right there. Does not take into account.
Right there it is. I'm looking right at it. Does not take into account a wrong suffered, and when you go back and tonight is all about your favorite phrases. When you stab somebody in the back, or you stab somebody and then you leave the knife in, so that you can
Oh yeah, well back. You can bury the hatchet.
That's the phrase.
Bury the hatchet and leave the handle sticking out.
And that's exactly what that is.
Oh yeah.
And
I'm going to get my pound of flesh, no matter, it may be today or tomorrow, but I'm going to get it.
But then, how many arguments do we have today of, we start this fight and start this argument and discussion, and, well, if you hadn't said this, and if you hadn't said that, or the way you said that, the way you said this, and it's because we are ignoring that part of what love is.
Well, yeah, and then
We're taking into account the wrong suffered. We're not being loving.
yeah, and giving no grace to our spouse
Or ourselves.
or ourselves, and saying, hey, I mean, but that just takes us, like you said, talking about our vows, right? Going into that,
And so how? Wait. I have a good one for you. So how do you recover from that? I'm going to throw this one up there.
Yeah, right, and that's exactly where I was going. You read my mind. Wow, see how that works. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. Husband, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. And you had said this earlier.
And that popped up. That's not actually what I was thinking of.
No, but hold on. So I got this
threw it up
point.
there.
But I got this point to make on that, right? Is because we give our, and you had started on this, talking about I give my vows, right?
Mm-hmm.
For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, for in sickness and in health, till death do us part. If God is at the center, I'm going to take that to the grave. If God is not at the center, life gets tough. Peace out.
Right.
I'm filing for divorce. I've married the wrong person. Whatever excuse I can do to lay that burden at your feet and not at the cross. No, I'm not living 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verses 4 and 7. I'm not living that at all. I've totally, that is not what love is. Love doesn't say when life gets hard and you know the woman that God has given you, and you've said all these vows, not to her, but to God. God, you gave me this woman. I promise to for better, for worse, sickness and health, for richer, for poorer, that I'm going to love her unconditionally. She doesn't have to earn it. I'm going to do it until death do us part. And those are few and far between. And that's where I just love that this is our calling, is that you know what, you're like, we're going to fight this fight until God takes. I know that you win this argument that you get to die first.
That's how it goes. Well, what I was actually thinking, the verse that I was thinking of was not the Ephesians verse, which we'll get into in a second, or maybe we won't, because you touched that one and we're good. The verse that I was thinking about was your life verse, James 5:16.
Oh, yeah, James 5:16.
That's how, when you have that unwinnable argument, when you have that feeling of going back and grabbing those wrongs and cherishing the wrongs that have been suffered against you, you're nurturing them, you're feeding them. The only way to recover, and you know this verse by heart, I don't, because I'm not as good. This one is James 5:16.
Is pray for each other, or confess your sins to each other.
That's the part I was
and pray for each other, so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person availeth much. And but here's the thing.
Wait. So I'm going to go back to this.
Yeah.
You pray for each other. You confess each other.
And you're building the house.
You confess your sins to God, and you pray for each other.
Well, and we've talked about this in the reconciliation of our marriage for the last 4 years, is how even now it still gets difficult to express our emotions, and knowing everything that we know about each other, everything that's been laid out. We're naked and unashamed before each other and before God. We still have moments of acting like a 4-year-old. I'm feeling disconnected, so as they say in Celebrate Recovery, hurt people. Yeah. So I'm going to act like a 4-year-old, and then I'm going to say something that I know is going to push your button. Then you're going to say something that's going to push my button, and the next thing you know, we definitely need to pull out James 5:16 and say, honey, I need to confess my sins before you, because I acted not in your best interest. I acted in my best interest.
Wow. But that stuff's going to happen. It's going to happen consistently. It's going to happen constantly. We do that because humans are fallible. We trip and we fall just a little bit, just a little bit. We have been saved by the grace of God through Christ alone and faith alone and through His Word alone. But we're still creatures that have sinned,
seeking our own glory, not His.
Yeah, and what we forget, or maybe never really learned, is that it's not about our faith. It's not about our strength in our faith.
It's what our faith is in.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Is that we have a God that is so big and so strong that we can't know him fully. We can spend our lives trying to know him, but
Right.
I mean, he's bigger than we can conceive. Why do I why do I feel the need to trust in my faith when I can just trust in his faith in me?
Yeah. And then you as the spiritual leader of the house, and your God is not at the center of my life. He's not the center of my marriage. I'm asking
And just
you
to clarify that I'm not the spiritual leader.
No. Right. I'm speaking of myself, that I'm the spiritual leader of the house. God is not at the center of my life. He's not the center of my marriage, and I'm asking you to trust me. Where's that train wreck going to go?
Yeah.
Well, we already know it ends up in fidelity, addiction, sexual addiction, pornography, whatever it is that's feeding my flesh.
Well, and I want to throw this out there as well, is that, when I can't even say that it was when we first started the reconciliation process, because it was probably before. I don't know how it fits into that timeline, but when you asked to reconcile, and I had said, yes, I want to reconcile.
Yeah.
And then, so we had that. And then, there's, a little bit of time where we're both kind of digesting it. And in that time, I was struggling with what rules and restrictions, what hoops did you have to jump through before we could reconcile? And I'm struggling with it. And I struggled with it for days.
That pound of flesh.
Fighting for that. And in your testimony, you talk about, not hearing God speak. And I'm not the kind of person that expects nor, looks for God to speak to me. But I heard God speaking to me clearly.
And what did he tell you?
God said, this is my marriage.
Right. No rules.
This is God's marriage.
Right.
It's not mine. It's not Bryan's. It is God's.
And I shouldn't say no rules, not your rules.
Correct.
My rules, not my rules. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let me back that. Let me reel that back in.
We use my and our so conveniently for us.
Yeah, it's so bad, right? It's not your rules, not my rules. It's his rules on what marriage should look like, and it's amazing that if we're putting our trust in God, like really putting our trust in there, I don't have to trust. I mean, there has to be some trust between you, but my faith and my trust is not in you. Right. My faith and trust is in him. And that I know that if I trust and surrender his will, that he's going to make all things right.
For his good.
For his glory, not mine. And that's where we get it wrong, is that I'm like, oh, God, I've been so good. You should, why are you blessing me? Why don't I have this chaos? But we're told, like, if we go through trials and tribulations, especially in marriage, and all that stuff, we go through trials, and I should say in marriage, because we have that partner to go along with, how much more it strengthens and deepens that relationship. And it's not based on sex. It's based on spiritual, intellectual, and emotional. And then, last but not least, would be the physical intimacy. And the world has got that so twisted. That's where the first thing is they go is sex is the end all be all.
Like you said, that's an entirely different episode.
Right.
I mean, that's a couple of episodes.
But it also goes in marriage, and knowing that we can fail. It takes us back to Mark chapter 9, verse 24, right? Where the father says, talking about his son is dying, and the Lord says, if you believe, he says, I believe, Lord, help me with my unbelief. And I know I struggle with that. You would.
That's been my prayer for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. And I didn't even know that. And that's crazy. As much as we talk to each other and we're around each other, that just tells you that communication is key, is that we can still struggle with things and thinking that we're telling our spouse about that, and we don't, right? Mm-hmm. We don't open that line of communication. And again, so it ties all of that together, right? If God is not at the center, and everything that we've learned over the last 4 years is completely useless, all the tools, right? All the tools that we have. I mean, if God is not at the center of our marriage, how difficult is it to have a heart talk?
Well, yeah, because I don't want to say that, we won't get anything out of it if we do, but it doesn't bring us any closer together.
But you're being deceitful, though, right?
Exactly. So you can ask for heart talk, and you can, go and spend your time, and, I might feel better in the short term.
Yeah. Oh.
But it has not brought me any closer to God. So it hasn't, even though it feels like it maybe has brought me closer to you, it hasn't.
Yeah.
Because, let's go back. Is that I'm still over, gosh, need to stop hitting that. I'm still over here and you're still over here. I can't, we moved our cameras, so I can't reach over and get into your camera anymore. So I'm still over here and you're still, wave at me, you're still over there.
Yeah.
Because,
and we're going different directions.
Because if we are not focusing on God, we're not getting any closer together.
Yeah.
And if I were really cool, I would have animated it so we could get closer together.
Oh, that would have been, taking that journey up. And it also is what we talked about last episode. It makes fewer suds. And I ain't talking about what you get when you're doing the dishes. You knew that was coming. But yeah, I mean, those seemingly unimportant decisions because
you still make them.
I've got somebody to answer to, right? Because
right. But you still make them. You still make those stupid decisions. But you can catch yourself.
Yes.
You can get yourself closer back on track, or you can allow your partner, your spouse. No, not even that. You can allow your spouse to catch you. Because it's not just me getting closer to God, it's me getting closer to God with you.
Yeah. Hey, honey, come back over here.
Yeah.
You're on that train.
Hey, come back over here. Exactly.
Yeah. And just, I mean.
And then, go ahead. I was just going to say, your communication becomes better. You touched on this earlier, is that when you're understanding what love is and you're focused on God, you can communicate better.
Yeah.
You can talk about your, what you're struggling with, what your successes are, what's good and bad.
I'm not trying to grab that hatchet.
Yeah. And when you're communicating, your expectations are clear. You understand what you expect from your spouse, and your spouse understands what you expect from them.
Yeah, no unspoken expectations.
Exactly.
Or and I don't know if you can ever get away from unspoken expectations in marriage, because I just think it's impossible. But
more of them become spoken.
I think they do, and they actually become more biblically based expectations, right? They're not worldly expectations. Where our focus is, and this was a line that you use a lot, where my focus is where I'm going.
Yeah. Well, and that's, just to clarify that, for people who haven't heard me say it for 12 years, is that it's, and I should have you do that because you're the motorcycle rider, but when you're driving, you're on a motorcycle, and I got the ape hangers right now. When you're on a motorcycle, if I look this way, I'm going to lean this way. So wherever my focus is, is where I'm going to go. So I need to always be focused on God.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, like I said, it just to kind of wrap up this conversation on that, and just grateful for Chris, for you to be open and about this, because it is tough. I mean, knowing of where our marriage was, and the infidelity and my addictions, and being able to show other women, and actually even men, right? Because, and not just saying that, because that showing that a marriage can recover, and it's nothing that we did. And now I'm going to run that train down the track. Is the only reason that our marriage is even what it is today is because God is completely, utterly at the center of our marriage. Mm-hmm. And that wraps it up in a nice little bow and leaves it right there, is that we wouldn't have recovery. We wouldn't have a marriage right now if he wasn't at the center. And we both truly believe that without him, we have zero, nothing, not a goose egg.
Correct.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this show tonight, and the discussion of what is at what should be at the center of your marriage. And again, the first 8 years of our marriage, my view was that sex was at the center, and now these last 4, it has been about God, and we have grown spiritually, intellectually, and emotionally together. And again, we've said this already. Lastly, was the physical intimacy. And I just pray that that you can take this knowledge that we have, and hopefully it was clear and concise to you, that understanding how important it is, taking that first commandment and making sure that you have no other gods before Him in your marriage, and that you truly give each other grace, and that you truly use 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verses 4 through 7, and that love always endures. If you enjoyed this show, leave us a comment, hit the like button, subscribe, and we hope you have a blessed night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.